things were wonderful. I got the perfect teaching assignment. I was coaching field hockey in the fall, basketball in the winter, along with gymnastics, and then in the spring I was coaching softball. And I was also teaching health, along with my phys ed classes. I was very, very busy, and I loved it. I loved my kids, and I knew immediately that I had gone into the correct profession for me. So, dream number one had come true. The following year, that whole first year was just remarkable, as I said. In November of the next year, while I was coaching my basketball team, I always worked out with my kids. I never asked them to do anything that I didn't do myself. So I was running laps with them. And on the third lap, I fainted. And again, I'd like to just reference a little bit about what Dr. Shields has said about some of the things that people and doctors would ask you. It was very painful for me after I fainted because I went from doctor to doctor to doctor. They asked me if I was an alcoholic. They asked me if I was pregnant. They asked me if I had a drug habit. They asked me if it was in my head. They literally told me, oh, it's in your head, it's all, there's nothing. And a year and a half, I put up with that stuff. And I'm sure that some of you maybe have experienced those same things. It was very difficult because I was working with high school students, elementary students, middle school students. And I'm sure in that town that I lived in, those rumors were spread. I'm married, I was single at the time. So it was really, really difficult for me that year. Finally, I went to a doctor who would listen to me. And by that time, I couldn't walk up 3 or 4 steps without fearing that I was going to faint. I had to sit down about the 3rd step or I was going to faint. And like I said, finally I went to a doctor, and it was an orthopedic surgeon who actually listened to me. And I told him, I said, I can't even climb 3 or 4 stairs. Something's not right. This shouldn't be happening to me. I'm a person who's in great physical shape. I work out. I used to run. I kept myself in wonderful shape. And he did. He finally listened to me. He sent me to an internist. The internist said, I'm going to send you to a cardiologist with the intent of having a stress test. I got to the cardiologist's office, and he said, no way, you're not having a stress test. He only listened to me. For some reason, he laid me on my left side, and he could hear the heart sounds. So he knew that something was wrong. And this is a miracle, as far as I'm concerned. Back in 1976, to have a cardiologist tell me, you need to have a heart cath before I tell you anything else. So I really feel like I was very lucky to even have somebody who would insist that I have a heart cath before he told me what he suspected that it was. On May 5th, in 1976, I underwent my first heart cath. I was 24 years old. On my next visit, my follow-up visit after the heart cath, which was about 2 weeks after that, the doctor told me that his suspicions were correct, that I had pulmonary hypertension. I'm sitting in his office with my parents. He told me a lot of stuff, but the only thing that I really remembered was the one sentence when he said, you have maybe 2 years to live. Your life will be very gloomy, and that's all I heard. That's the extent of it. What I didn't know at the time was he had told my parents, take her home and make her comfortable. And essentially, he did not do anything else. He didn't put me on anything. He didn't try anything. Another miracle as far as I'm concerned. He left. And I can laugh about that now, but he did leave, and the gentleman that I had who took his place was Dr. Joe Wise. And it was a complete turnaround for me, because this doctor was a younger doctor, cardiologist, and he said to me, Jeannette, yes, this is not a good prognosis, but I won't give up if you won't give up. And he pretty much left it up to me. When I was going to be tired, then I would just tell him I've had enough. Well, I didn't get tired, and I didn't give up, and he didn't give up. He put me on Coumadin immediately. He put me on Glenoxin. He put me on Lasix, potassium. All sound familiar?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I really credit him with being the one to really make a difference in my life. And I think I need to tell you this story. When I went to conference this past year in California in June, on my way back home, Dr. Wise now lives in Santa Fe. And so I just had to go see him. And so David and I, on our way back home, went to Santa Fe, and I got to see Dr. Wise. He left in 1992, so he treated me for quite a long time. But I hadn't seen him since 1992. So David and I went and we visited him, and he told David this, and he said to David, he said, it's very rarely that a doctor has an opportunity to make a difference in a person's life. And he was talking about me, and for him, if I'd have heard him say that, I would have said, you know, you're the one that made the difference in my life. And I was extremely blessed to be able to find him. And now, after I've told you that, I got to find out where I belong now. I think one of my biggest fears when I was diagnosed was that people in my hometown would know that I was dying. And I really had a problem with that as far as dealing with it emotionally. Because a lot of people don't know how to talk about it. I was one that couldn't talk to my family about it. I kept most of everything inside, and I kept it from David as well. And it's very difficult for me to talk about it. I'm probably regressing a little bit, but in 1976, I had to retire from teaching. I finished out that school year.